Okay, welcome everybody to this first episode of Between the Grooves, the vinyl collection. The idea of these videos is they're loosely based on my autobiography that I wrote, Between the Grooves, an audio biography, which is really the story of my life, but through the prism of music, through the music that's been important to me, has influenced me, that I've loved, that's moved me, etc. And the book is littered with references to bands and artists and music and songs and albums, what have you. And I thought it might be a good idea to dive into that a bit deeper cuts, if you will, and discuss my album collection in a bit more detail, and try and come up with sort of themes as I go through these recordings. So I thought what I'd do is I'd start with the year I was born, 1969. But then I kind of looked at the collection and realised I actually don't have that many albums in the collection that were actually released in 1969. So I thought I'd go 1969 back to the beginning. And I think the earliest album I have in my collection is from 1953, which is Rock Around the Clock, Bill Haley and the Comets. So I thought I'd just dive in 1969 earlier and kind of come up with some interesting bits and pieces. So the first album is Elvis Presley's debut album, released on RCA in 1956. So this is obviously the iconic cover, sort of copied by, the Clash and other bands, as it were. And it was basically recorded between 1954 and 1956, released in 1956, in March 1956, and surprisingly it has few sort of recognisable songs, I guess, really on it. Blue Suede Shoes, the Carl Perkins song, is on here, and maybe Blue Moon. Oh, and Tutti Frutti, obviously made famous by written by Little Richard. And Elvis Presley was a great admirer of Little Richard and made sure it was on his debut album. So this is a copy, as a re-release, obviously. It's a copy of the American release, because I think the US version had other songs like I think it had That's Alright, Lordy Lordy, Miss Claudie, Shake, Rattle and Roll, and some other sort of recognisable songs, as it were. Spent 10 weeks at number one. It's considered the first million selling rock album in history. And why Elvis? Well, Elvis is probably the first artist that I kind of recognised as an artist and followed and was kind of into. Played Elvis pretty much constantly. It's kind of the reason I wanted to sing. I wanted to be in bands. I wanted to make music as well. Massive influence on me, and a huge influence on many just countless artists. And I think we think of Elvis in the kind of like the fat Elvis in the white jumpsuit in Vegas and what have you, but that was really only a very small part of his life, and unfortunately there was the really bad movies as well. But I don't think you can underestimate the seismic shift in music that Elvis brought about, and I think the only other comparable time to that was probably 1977 and punk. So Elvis, the first punk, ironically. I thought I'd share this album with you as well. Didn't come out in 1969. Not entirely sure what year it came out, actually. 50 greatest hits, including 18 number one hits, as seen on TV, right there. I mean, this is just, oh, there he is, Elvis in the jumpsuit, Hawaii looking, I guess. But this is just, the hits on here is ridiculous. Heartbreak Hotel, Blue Suede Shoes, Hound Dog, Love Me Tender, All Shook Up, Hard-Headed Woman, King Creole is a good film, Jailhouse Rock, Hunk of Love, I Got Stung, Fever, really great interpretation of that great song, Are You Lonesome Tonight? And then, you've got the absolute, classics later on in his career, like In the Ghetto and Suspicious Minds. So yeah, now this album got played to death. I mean, this was just constantly on my turntable Absolute banger. Still listen to it occasionally. So I thought the next album I'd talk about is Mr. Cash, Johnny Cash, Ring of Fire. This is actually another best of. Came out in 1963. Really, this is because of my father. Massive Johnny Cash fan. Played Johnny all the time in the car. Lots of country and western. I'm not afraid of country and western, but this has the absolute, banger. The title track of that album there, sort of Ring of Fire, really. He's like Elvis. He was kind of always there, always in the background. The title track, Ring of Fire, was written by Joan Carter, long time lover. Did they marry? Can't remember. Don't know. Someone tell me. And she basically wrote it. It was a bit of a dog, bit of a wild character, really. And I think she kind of got fed up with his antics, and she wrote the song Ring of Fire for him. Surprisingly lush album, actually. You kind of think of a lot of these country western songs as sort of plodding along, like that. But there's lots of arrangements and what have you on the album. Really, really great, worth a listen. I may come back and dip back into Cash in the future. The next album, 1968. We're getting closer. Again, this is a compilation. It's not an album as such, but albums as we know them didn't really start cropping up until much later. Obviously with the likes of the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's, showing what an album could be rather than what sort of came before, which was just really a collection of singles. Many of these albums are, but this is the immortal Walker Brothers. There, I became really interested in the Walker Brothers, probably slightly later in life, but Make It Easy on Yourself, The Sun Ain't Gonna Shine Anymore, songs like that. I kind of know they're sort of etched in the back of my mind. They were always there when I was younger, listening to radio, and I love the smoothness of the orchestrations. I loved his voice, and I think that's probably why I kind of got into bands like later on bands like Pulp and what have you. So this more lush sound, slightly off the wall as well. I think I became a great admirer of Scott Walker. He became, when he went solo, obviously. I mean, the Walker Brothers were kind of seen as kind of like a boy band, chart toppers and what have you. They even did the song No Regrets that Midger sort of covered as well, Land of a Thousand Dancers, etc. But Scott Walker, when he went solo, became more experimental in his solo career. But here, anyway, we have the smoothness of the boy band, teen idol material of the Walker Brothers. I still listen to Scott Walker and the Walker Brothers. Generally, when I'm trying to sort of de-stress a little bit, put it on the headphones. If you're, London Tube or what have you. Did I mention my book? Between the Grooves, still available at Amazon. Just thought I'd mention that. Okay, 1969, the year I was born. Man on the Moon. Great leaps for mankind. Coincidence? You decide. 2 albums by this band released in 1969. Maybe the first one squeaked in 68. It's down as being released in 1969, early 1969. But I'm going to go for the second album. Again, monumental band. Huge influence on many artists. Another band that I actually got into much later in life, probably when I was about 16, 17. I actually remember listening to it in the back of the car when my dad took me to golf lessons, and I know I started playing golf when I was about 15 or 16. No, I'm no better than I was then. Anyway, this is the mighty Led Zeppelin, and this is Led Zeppelin 2, which is, Led Zeppelin 1's great album, but Led Zeppelin 4, absolute classic. We may come back to that one, for obviously Stairway to Heaven and what have you on it. But for me, this is by far my favourite. Seminal second album They didn't name their albums not until Houses of the Holy, which I think is album 4. So Led Zeppelin 1, Led Zeppelin, Led Zeppelin 2, Led Zeppelin 3, and Led Zeppelin 4, known as Styx sometimes. After 1973 when they started actually naming their albums. But you know, every single track on this is an absolute banger. I mean, obviously you've got a whole lot of love. What a riff! Well, you know how it goes. Just used on for the music for Top of the Pops. Absolute fantastic album. Little fact: Whole Lot of Love could have been a great single, but Led Zeppelin were really, you know, they didn't like the idea of singles. They didn't want to be a singles band. They wanted to be an albums band. So because Whole Lot of Love was too damn catchy, they stuck the, you know, that kind of like experimental bit in the middle where it kind of goes off all the moaning and groaning from Plant. They put it in there so it basically couldn't be released as a single. I suppose you could argue they could have edited it down, but that was the idea. You've got the Lemon song. Squeeze my lemon until the juice runs down my leg. Wonder what that song's about. Thank You. Absolutely beautiful song. Did think about that song as one of the songs to play at my wedding when we were walking down the aisle, but Kate overruled. No, she didn't overrule me. We chose some fantastic songs. Heartbreaker, Living Loving Maid. Love the way that those two songs roll in. Rambling On, which is about I think inspired by Lord of the Rings, and of course Moby Dick, which is really an instrumental with the most astonishing drum solo in the middle from Bonham. You know, the powerhouse that was Bonham. So Led Zeppelin 2, absolutely love that album. So the next one, bit off the wall, bit out there, 1969, not an album as much as a soundtrack, Easy Rider. Now this album came really important to me in my more sort of chemical induced days. Absolute banger of an album. Obviously soundtrack to the film Easy Rider by the same name, and this has, well, it has Born to Be Wild on it, and I mentioned that in my book because it's one of the first times that the phrase heavy metal was used, the line heavy metal thunder, which I suppose was illustrative of sort of Harley Davidson's, you know, blowing down Route 66 and all that. Very hippie album. The Pusher, the song about how, you know, you can trust your dealer, but you can't trust the pusher man. The Weight, the beautiful song, The Weight, covered by, well, this one is actually by, who was this? I think it was the band, or the Byrds, maybe. But The Weight was covered by one of my favourite artists of all time, Jimmy Barnes as well. Great song. Don't bogart that joint, my friend. Pass it over to me. And, you know, the Ballad of Easy Rider. Wonderful film if you've ever seen it. A film of its time. But yeah, I used to lay back, stick this on. Jimi Hendrix, Steppenwolf, the Byrds, Fraternity of Man, Roger McGunn, the Electric Prunes. Okay. Absolute, yeah, lovely album to listen to. And it's got that, is very evocative of that kind of era as well. Next one is going to be a little surprise. So stand back everyone. If I get this the right way around. Da-da, da-da. I mean, how's that for a little bit of marketing? There we go. Jethro Tull, Stand Up, also released in 1969. Second album by Jethro Tull. First album featuring guitarist Martin Barre. I mean, this is obviously pretty original because I think the re-releases didn't have the pop-up. I mean, it's called Stand Up, right? That's the idea. I'll talk more about Jethro Tull in coming up videos, but very cool album. Slightly funky, slightly off the wall, merging folk and blues and rock together. I'll come back to Jethro Tull, but I thought I'd mention that one purely because it is, yeah, it is 1969, and I do have a great love of Jethro Tull. So the last album, sort of shout out really, is for this one, The Beginning, 1969, repackaged from a slightly earlier release called From Genesis to Revelation. This is before Phil Collins joined the band, so not the band as probably you'd think of them now. But you know, I'm a huge fan of the Genesis pantheon of albums. Love Genesis, love most of their stuff. Big fan of the Gabriel years, obviously. Like the early Phil Collins period as well, like Trick of the Tail, and then there were three. But this is just a collection of kind of songs from their much earlier beginnings of their career, really, and it's an interesting album. Kind of slightly dense to get into, but you can kind of see where they were going. But again, I'm going to probably come back to Genesis later on. But yeah, massive fan of Genesis, and that's kind of where it all began. The genesis of Genesis, if you will. So that's my first little dive into my album collection, 1969 back. Almost to the beginning. Hope you've enjoyed that. More of this a bit later on. Subscribe, and I'll put the link to the book, and also there is actually a Spotify playlist that accompanies the book as well, which you may be interested in. Okay, guys, be good, be kind, be truthful, and be free.